The naval base was quiet. Too quiet. The moonlight spilled through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the empty hallways. Most of the crew had gone to their bunks hours ago. Only the night janitor was there, moving slowly with his mop and bucket. His name was never spoken aloud, just a whisper among the few who had worked there long enough. Some called him the Silent Shadow. Others said nothing at all. Tonight, he walked like he belonged, yet he didn't belong at all. The Admiral of the SEAL unit strolled down the corridor, his polished boots echoing sharply against the metal floor. He was laughing, a loud, confident laugh, the kind that filled the halls even when no one was there. His eyes caught the janitor, and he stopped mid-step. "Hey, you," the Admiral called out. "What's your code name again?" "Lone Eagle, right?" The janitor looked up just for a moment. His eyes were calm, almost bored. Yet there was something underneath, something that made the Admiral's laughter falter for a split second. He didn't answer. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something far away. The mop continued its slow, steady rhythm against the floor. The Admiral chuckled nervously. "Come on, don't be shy. Lone Eagle. That's a funny name for a janitor, don't you think?" He leaned closer, trying to force a smile. But the janitor remained still. Not moving, not laughing. His silence was heavy, almost commanding. Then, from somewhere deep inside the base, came a strange noise. A soft metallic clang, followed by a low hum. The Admiral froze. He looked around. The janitor didn't. He just continued, casually moving his mop, as if nothing had happened. But his eyes flicked to the source of the noise for just a second. That glance was enough. It sent a shiver down the Admiral's spine. "Did you hear that?" the Admiral asked, his voice a little higher than usual. The janitor stopped. Slowly. He turned his head, just enough to meet the Admiral's gaze. The look was sharp, silent, and it felt like it could cut through steel. The Admiral laughed again, but this time it was forced. He tried to make a joke. Maybe it's just the pipes, or maybe he didn't finish. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the floor. Lights flickered overhead. Shadows danced along the walls, and for a moment, it felt like the hallway was alive. The Admiral's confident steps faltered. The janitor, still calm, moved closer to a secured door. His hand hovered over the handle, but he didn't touch it. Instead, he just waited, quiet, patient. The Admiral swallowed hard. He had seen many things in his career, dangerous missions, hostile lands, secret codes. But something about this janitor felt different. There was a presence, a power that didn't belong in a janitor's body. The kind of power that could make a man think twice before taking another step. The sound from the door grew louder, now mixed with a faint whisper, almost human but strange. The janitor's eyes narrowed. The Admiral noticed, for the first time, the faint scars on the janitor's hands, the steady way he held his body, the calmness in a place where fear should have taken over. "All right," the Admiral said, trying to sound casual. "Lone Eagle, maybe you should check that noise. You seem capable." The janitor said nothing. He moved, smooth, controlled, silent. The Admiral watched him, heart beating faster than usual. Every step the janitor took seemed deliberate, as if he was ready for something the Admiral couldn't even imagine. And then, just as the Admiral opened his mouth to speak again, the lights flickered one last time, plunging the hallway into shadows. For a moment, the world seemed frozen. The only sound was the janitor's soft footsteps. The Admiral's laughter had disappeared. Something told him that tonight, nothing would be the same. The hallway was silent again, but the silence felt different now. It wasn't the usual quiet of an empty naval base. It was heavy, almost alive. The Admiral's boots echoed nervously as he followed the janitor, trying to hide his unease. Every step the janitor took seemed precise, like he had walked these halls 1,000 times before, even though no one really knew who he was or where he came from. "All right, Lone Eagle," the Admiral said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. "You've been here a long time. How about telling me the story behind that name of yours?" The janitor didn't answer. He just paused, turned slightly, and fixed the Admiral with a steady stare. The kind of stare that made men feel small. The Admiral shivered, realizing that this wasn't just a harmless joke. Whatever the janitor's past was, it was something serious, something dangerous. The Admiral took a deep breath. I mean, come on. Lone Eagle sounds like one of those top secret code names from some spy mission or special operation. The janitor tilted his head, the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. Maybe it is, he said quietly, his voice low but firm. It wasn't loud enough to fill the hallway, but it carried weight, power, experience. The Admiral's laugh faltered again. You're joking, right? The janitor said nothing. Instead, he moved toward the control room door. His steps were calm, but there was a rhythm to them. Like a man used danger, like a predator moving without making a sound. The Admiral followed, his curiosity mixed with growing sense of fear. As they walked, the lights flickered. A shadow darted across the wall, fast and deliberate. The Admiral stopped. Did you see that? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. The janitor didn't look. His eyes stayed focused on the door ahead. Not everything is meant to be seen, he said softly, almost like a warning. The Admiral tried to joke again. You know, for someone with a code name like Lone Eagle, you sure act ordinary. Ordinary. The word hung in the air, meaningless in this place. Because the janitor was far from ordinary. The way he moved, the calm in his eyes, the silence that seemed to demand respect. It was all a lie, a mask hiding something far greater. Suddenly, a faint alarm beeped from inside the control room. The janitor paused, listening carefully. The Admiral froze. He had trained for countless operations, faced enemies in remote deserts and hostile seas, but this moment, standing behind a quiet janitor in a dark naval base, made his heart race. Something about the calmness of the janitor made him realize how unprepared he was. The janitor finally spoke again, almost casually. Names don't always matter. What you do defines you. The Admiral frowned, trying to understand. And what do I do? He asked. The janitor turned his head slightly, looking at the Admiral with a hint of something dark and unreadable. Right now, you survive. That's what matters. The Admiral swallowed hard. The humor he had tried to maintain earlier was gone. For the first time, he wondered if he had underestimated this man. The janitor he had laughed at, the man everyone thought was ordinary. This man was different, far different. Then, without warning, the janitor pressed a button on the door panel. The door slid open silently. Inside, the control room glowed with red emergency lights. Screens flickered, showing strange symbols, codes, and maps of the base. The Admiral's eyes widened. How do you know all this? The janitor stepped inside, calm as ever. I always know, he said, almost whispering. They call me Lone Eagle for a reason, and now it's time you see why. The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. This was no longer a joke. This was real. Whatever story lay behind the janitor's code name, it was about to be revealed. And in that moment, the Admiral realized one truth. The man he had laughed at might be the most dangerous person on the entire base.
The control room was alive with blinking lights and humming machines. The Admiral stood at the entrance, his mouth slightly open, unable to hide the mix of fear and awe. The janitor, Lone Eagle, moved through the room like he owned it. Every switch he flipped, every screen he glanced at, seemed automatic, precise, flawless, as if his mind and the base were one. Suddenly, a siren blared through the hallways. Red lights flashed violently, painting the walls with a sense of danger. The Admiral jumped, his heart racing. "What's happening?" he shouted. Lone Eagle didn't answer immediately. He paused, listening, his hand resting lightly on a control panel. His calmness was unnerving. Then, without a word, he pressed a few buttons and the siren stopped. The lights returned to a steady glow. The Admiral's eyes widened. "You stopped it? How?" Lone Eagle looked at him for the first time, his expression unreadable. "Not everything is broken," he said simply. "Some things just need the right touch." Before the Admiral could ask more, the base shook slightly. Metal groaned, and a distant explosion echoed from the hangar area. Sparks flew from a broken panel nearby. The Admiral froze, realizing that whatever was happening, it wasn't an accident. Lone Eagle moved swiftly toward a large screen showing a live feed of the base. Dozens of shadowy figures were approaching from the north gate, armed, moving silently, deliberately. The Admiral's breath caught. He had seen trained soldiers, elite forces, but the precision of these intruders was different. It was calculated.
Deadly.
They're here, Lone Eagle said quietly. And they know exactly what they're looking for. The Admiral swallowed hard. What do we do? He asked, fear creeping into his voice. Lone Eagle's eyes narrowed. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he grabbed a sleek device from the console, pressing buttons that the Admiral didn't even recognize. Doors locked automatically, lights flickered, and surveillance cameras shifted to track every movement. Every corner of the base was suddenly alive, and it felt like the walls themselves were watching. The Admiral took a cautious step forward. You're not just a janitor, are you? Lone Eagle's lips twitched in the faintest smile. I told you. Names don't matter. Actions do. The first shadowy intruders appeared on a nearby monitor. Lone Eagle didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, he activated a series of silent alarms, trapping the intruders in a corridor. Then, moving like a shadow himself, he disappeared from the room, leaving the Admiral staring at the screens, heart hammering. Seconds later, a soft, metallic thud echoed from the hallways outside. Another. And another. Lone Eagle was already there, neutralizing threats before they even knew he existed. The Admiral watched, frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. The man he had laughed at, the janitor he had teased about a silly code name, was now a force of pure precision and calm, deadly skill. The screens flickered, showing intruders incapacitated one by one. Not a single shot fired, not a single scream. The Admiral realized, in horror and admiration, that this was not ordinary training. This was expertise honed over years, maybe decades, in ways he couldn't imagine. And then, the monitor went black for a moment. When the image returned, Lone Eagle stood alone in the middle of the hallway, calm, unmoved, as if he had never left the control room. The intruders were gone, and only silence remained. The Admiral's mind raced. He had underestimated this man completely. Every joke he had made, every laugh he had shared at the janitor's expense, suddenly felt foolish. This was no ordinary janitor. This was Lone Eagle, silent, deadly, unstoppable. And the Admiral knew one thing with certainty. Tonight, nothing in the base would ever be the same again.
The hallway was quiet again, but the tension in the air was thicker than ever. The Admiral stood frozen near the control room, his eyes fixed on the janitor, the man he had once mocked. Lone Eagle moved with a calm precision, almost gliding over the floor as if the chaos of the base didn't touch him at all. Every step, every motion seemed intentional, controlled, deadly. The Admiral finally spoke, his voice trembling. You're not just a janitor. Who are you really? Lone Eagle paused, his shadow stretching long under the flickering lights. For a moment, he said nothing, letting the silence stretch. Then he finally spoke, his voice low, steady and commanding. I am what you should have feared the moment you laughed at me. The words sent a chill down the Admiral's spine. He realized that all this time, the calm, quiet man cleaning the halls had been hiding something far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. His mind raced, missions, intelligence reports, rumors he had heard during training. But nothing prepared him for this presence. Then came a series of memories flashing through the Admiral's mind, like pieces of a puzzle, suddenly snapping into place. Stories he had dismissed as legend, about a lone operative who struck fear into the world's most dangerous enemies. An agent who worked in shadows, always unseen, leaving no trace. And a name that always whispered through military channels. Lone Eagle. The Admiral swallowed hard. You are the Lone Eagle? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lone Eagle nodded, almost casually. I was never a janitor. That was a role I played, a mask. People laughed, people ignored me. But when the time came, I was ready. The Admiral stepped back, awe and fear mixing in his chest. He had trained with elite forces, faced impossible odds, But standing here, watching the man he had mocked, he felt powerless. The janitor's calmness wasn't arrogance. It was absolute mastery. A mastery built on years of training, missions, and survival in situations that the Admiral could only imagine. A sudden noise from the far end of the hall snapped the Admiral's attention. Lone Eagle turned, eyes narrowing, scanning the shadows with an intensity that made the air feel heavy. "They are not done," he said simply. And with that, he moved toward the source, silent as a shadow, blending into the darkness as though he were a part of it. The Admiral followed cautiously, keeping a safe distance. He watched as Lone Eagle neutralized a group of intruders with silent efficiency. Every movement was deliberate, every strike precise. Not a single sound betrayed his actions, yet the Admiral could feel the weight of their defeat with every step. Finally, after the last intruder was incapacitated, Lone Eagle stopped. He turned slowly, facing the Admiral fully for the first time since the chaos began. "Do you understand now?" he asked. His voice was calm, but carried an unspoken warning. The Admiral nodded, unable to speak. He realized the full truth. The man he had laughed at, the janitor he had mocked for his code name, was one of the most dangerous and skilled operatives alive. Lone Eagle's eyes scanned the hallway once more. Then, with a faint, almost imperceptible smile, he returned to his mop and bucket. The calm, ordinary janitor was back. But the Admiral knew better. That mask of ordinariness hid a force that could strike fear into anyone who dared underestimate him. The Admiral exhaled slowly, his respect for the janitor now mingled with awe and a hint of fear. He had underestimated him, mocked him, and survived to tell the tale. And he knew, deep down, that the name Lone Eagle carried weight far beyond anything he had imagined. Tonight, the legend wasn't just a story anymore. Tonight, the Admiral had seen it alive.
The base was no longer quiet. The earlier calm had been shattered, replaced by an uneasy tension that hummed through the hallways. The Admiral stood frozen, watching Lone Eagle move like a shadow across the floor. He had already seen the janitor's deadly precision, but tonight, the threat outside the base would push him, and the legend, further. Through the large security monitors, Lone Eagle spotted movement near the northern gate. A dozen figures, armed and deliberate, advanced slowly, avoiding the cameras as if they knew where every blind spot was. They weren't ordinary intruders. They were trained, coordinated, and dangerous. The Admiral swallowed hard. What do we do?" he asked, his voice betraying both awe and fear. Lone Eagle didn't answer with words. Instead, he moved with silent confidence toward the nearest security panel. His fingers flew across the buttons, activating alarms and locking every entry point. The intruder's path suddenly narrowed, forcing them into tight corridors where Lone Eagle could control the engagement. The Admiral's eyes widened as he watched. You can't be serious," he whispered. "There's too many of them." Lone Eagle paused and turned, eyes meeting the Admiral's. There was no fear in those eyes. Only focus. Only skill. "Numbers don't matter," he said softly. "Precision does." Almost immediately, the first intruders rounded a corner. Lone Eagle appeared in the hallway like a ghost. He moved with uncanny speed, his fists and feet striking with lethal efficiency. Not a single shot was fired. Not a single alarm betrayed his movement. Each intruder went down silently, as if the shadows themselves were fighting. The Admiral held his breath. Every time Lone Eagle moved, it felt like time slowed. The man who had once been a janitor now controlled the battlefield with ease. The Admiral had trained with elite units, but nothing had prepared him for this. This was more than skill. This was mastery. Another group approached from the opposite corridor. Lone Eagle split his focus effortlessly. He ducked, rolled, and struck with calculated force, neutralizing threats faster than the eye could follow. The Admiral felt his knees weaken as he watched. He had underestimated the man he had laughed at, mocked for his code name. And now he realized how foolish that had been. The intruders began to retreat, realizing that Lone Eagle's silent, unstoppable force was too much for them. But he didn't chase them. Instead, he watched carefully, letting fear and strategy do their work. Each step, each pause, was intentional. He controlled not only the battlefield but the minds of his enemies. Finally, silence returned to the hallways, except for Lone Eagle's calm breathing. The Admiral exhaled slowly, relief and disbelief mingling. He murmured, unable to finish the sentence. Lone Eagle turned, his gaze sweeping across the Admiral. "Threats come and go," he said quietly. "But preparation, patience, and precision, those are what make a man unstoppable." The Admiral nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He had seen courage. He had seen skill. But he had never seen something like this. The janitor, the man he had teased, was a force unlike anything he had imagined. Lone Eagle picked up his mop again, moving silently back toward the maintenance closet. The calm, ordinary janitor was back. But the Admiral knew the truth now. Behind that ordinary mask was a man who could take down any threat, any enemy, anywhere. And as the Admiral looked around the hallways, he realized that tonight, the base had been saved by a legend. A man whose code name was feared worldwide. A man called Lone Eagle. The Admiral understood one thing clearly. Never again would he underestimate the quiet janitor who walked among them unnoticed.
The base was quiet again, but the silence was heavy, different this time. It wasn't calm. It was tense, charged, like the air itself was waiting. The Admiral's heart raced as he followed Lone Eagle through the dimly lit corridors. He had seen the janitor in action before, but now something felt personal. Something about the calm, deadly precision of Lone Eagle made the Admiral feel exposed. The janitor moved with purpose, his eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. He didn't speak. His silence was more commanding than words, more powerful than any threat. The Admiral swallowed hard, realizing he was trailing a man who could have killed him in a blink. And the thought was terrifying. "Who are you, really?" the Admiral asked, his voice trembling. Lone Eagle stopped. Slowly, he turned to face the Admiral, and for the first time, the full weight of his presence hit him. The janitor wasn't just skilled. He was a predator, silent, calculating, and fearless. His gaze locked onto the Admiral's like a steel trap, holding him in place. "You still don't understand," Lone Eagle said softly, almost like a whisper. "I told you, names don't matter. Actions define a man. And right now, your actions are hesitation." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. Every instinct in his body screamed to move, to run, to hide, but he couldn't. Lone Eagle's stare pinned him in place, silent, commanding, almost alive. The Admiral realized that fear wasn't coming from the threat outside the base. It was coming from the man standing right in front of him. A sudden sound echoed from the hallway ahead. Another intruder. Lone Eagle didn't flinch. He moved like a shadow, disappearing into the darkness, and the Admiral's heart thumped violently. He heard a struggle, soft, quick, precise, and then silence. Lone Eagle reappeared, standing calmly, as if nothing had happened. The Admiral stepped closer, trying to keep his composure. You're unbelievable," he whispered. "I've never seen anyone like you." Lone Eagle tilted his head. "You'll see many things in your life," he said, "but only a few will matter. What matters is this. Underestimate me, and you don't live to regret it." The Admiral realized the weight of those words. He had laughed at this man. He had joked about a code name. And now, in the face of a living legend, he understood the folly of it. The quiet janitor who mopped the hallways was not only a master of combat, but a master control of fear, of precision. Another sound came, closer this time, more intruders. The Admiral froze, watching as Lone Eagle moved toward them. Every strike, every motion was calculated, silent, almost invisible. The Admiral could barely keep up with his eyes. He had never seen anything like this, an entire force taken down, without a single shot fired, without a single alarm. When the last intruder fell, Lone Eagle turned slowly to the Admiral again. "Do you understand now?" he asked. There was no anger, no boastfulness, only quiet authority. The Admiral nodded slowly, his respect and fear mingling. "Yes, I understand," he said. "You are unstoppable." Lone Eagle's eyes softened slightly, and he took a step back. "And now," he said almost casually, You know why I'm called Lone Eagle. Remember it, respect it, and never forget it. The Admiral exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and awe. The quiet janitor had revealed himself, not as a man to be laughed at, but as a force to be reckoned with. And in that moment, he realized one thing. The world had underestimated Lone Eagle for too long. The hallways were still once more, but the Admiral knew that tonight he had faced a man unlike any other and survived. The base was quiet again, but this time it felt different. The danger had passed, yet the air still carried the tension of what had just unfolded. The Admiral stood in the hallway, watching the janitor move slowly toward the maintenance closet, mop in hand. The calm, ordinary man he had mocked hours ago now seemed like a living legend. The Admiral swallowed hard, his respect for Lone Eagle growing with every step the man took. "I can't believe it," he muttered under his breath. "All this time, I laugh at you." Lone Eagle paused briefly, glancing over his shoulder. There was no anger in his eyes, only a quiet acknowledgement of the Admiral's words. "Jokes are easy," he said softly. "Actions, those are hard." And tonight, action spoke louder than words. The Admiral nodded slowly, feeling the weight of that truth. He had faced threats, dangers, missions he thought were impossible, but nothing compared to witnessing Lone Eagle in action. Not bullets, not explosions, not strategy manuals. Nothing prepared him for this quiet, unstoppable force. Suddenly, the Admiral's eyes caught something on the monitors: stragglers. A few intruders still tried to sneak through, desperate and panicked. Lone Eagle didn't rush. He didn't need to. Calmly, almost lazily, he activated the controls. Doors slammed shut. Surveillance cameras tracked every move. The remaining threats were neutralized without a sound, without a struggle. The Admiral exhaled slowly. "Unbelievable," he whispered. He realized that this man, the janitor, the legend, the Lone Eagle, had complete control over the situation, over the base, over life and death itself. Lone Eagle returned to the hallway, mop in hand, moving as if he had just finished an ordinary night's work. The Admiral stepped closer, feeling both relief and awe. "Your code name?" "I get it now," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You're something else entirely." Lone Eagle smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "It's not about the name," he said. "It's about respect. Earn it, give it, and never forget it. And tonight, you've seen why people call me Lone Eagle." The Admiral nodded, understanding the weight of those words. He realized the janitor's calm exterior was not a mask. It was a result of experience, discipline, and unmatched skill. The man had walked unnoticed among them, laughed at by many, underestimated by all until now. For a moment, they stood in silence. The Admiral's mind raced, recalling every moment of the night. The intruders, the silence, the precision. He had witnessed something extraordinary, something rare, a living legend disguised as a janitor, a man who could change the outcome of any battle without breaking a sweat. Finally, the Admiral spoke again. I don't know if I'll ever see anyone like you again." Lone Eagle nodded slightly. "Maybe you won't. Maybe you will. It doesn't matter. Remember this. The world is full of unseen forces. Some are quiet. Some are deadly. Some are legends." The Admiral watched as Lone Eagle pushed open the maintenance closet door and stepped inside. The mop and bucket were all that remained in the hallway. A simple mask hiding a man who had just proven himself unstoppable. The Admiral took a deep breath, his awe and respect mixing with a quiet fear. He had laughed at this man hours ago. Now, he would never forget him. The name Lone Eagle would stay with him forever. A reminder that appearances can be deceiving and true power often hides behind silence. As the Admiral walked away, he realized one thing. The quiet janitor had changed everything. The legend had left its mark. The base, the Admiral, and everyone who thought they knew the rules would never be the same. And somewhere in the shadows, Lone Eagle waited, silent, calm, untouchable, a force the world could never truly see coming.